Picture this. You're standing in a room with two identical envelopes lying before you. Inside each one is money, real money, but you have no idea how much. The only thing you know is that one envelope contains exactly twice what the other holds. You reach for one envelope, crack it open, and find $100. A fortune? Pocket change? You can't tell. But now comes the moment that will shatter everything you think you know about logic itself. You're offered a choice. Keep your $100 or trade it for whatever lies in the other envelope. $50 or $200. It's a coin flip, right? A simple 50-50 gamble. But what if I told you that mathematics itself, cold, rational, infallible mathematics, insists you should always switch? And what if I told you that this same logic creates an impossible loop that would have you switching envelopes forever, trapped in an endless cycle of mathematical reasoning that leads nowhere? Welcome to the two envelopes paradox, where logic doesn't just fail, it devours itself. Let's walk through the reasoning that has tormented mathematicians for decades. You hold $100. You know the other envelope contains either 50 or 200. Your mind begins to calculate. If your envelope holds the smaller amount, the 100, then switching gets you $200. Double your money. If your envelope holds the larger amount, switching gets you $50. Half your fortune, gone. But here's where it gets sinister. You assign each possibility a 50% chance. Why? Because you chose randomly, and ignorance feels like equality. So your brain performs the cold mathematics of expectation. 50% chance of $200. 50% chance of $50. The expected value? $125. Your $100 envelope suddenly feels like you're holding fire. Keeping it means accepting less than what mathematics promises you deserve. The logic is pristine, unassailable. Switch. But now you hold the other envelope. Maybe it contains $50, maybe $200. And that same voice, that same mathematical certainty, whispers again, there's a 50% chance this is the smaller amount. Switch back. So, you switch back. And the logic applies again. And again, and again. You're trapped in an infinite mirror of reasoning, each reflection showing you the same face, the face of logic that demands you keep switching forever. The paradox isn't just in the mathematics. It's in the very nature of logical thought when it encounters its own reflection. This is what philosophers call a strange loop, a system that somehow gives rise to itself, like a snake eating its own tail, until nothing remains but the eating itself. But the true horror isn't the endless switching. It's what this reveals about the architecture of human reasoning. We built our understanding of probability, of decision-making, of rational thought itself, on what we believed were solid foundations. Yet here, in this simple scenario with two envelopes and some money, those foundations crumble. The flaw isn't obvious. That's what makes it so unsettling. 3 explanations emerge from the mathematical wreckage, each one revealing a different crack in our logical foundation. First, the assumption of equal probability. We assumed a 50-50 chance because we felt ignorant, but ignorance isn't the same as equiprobability. Reality doesn't structure itself around our lack of knowledge. Second, the phantom of undefined expectations. We calculated an expected value, but expectations require a known distribution of possibilities. When the amounts are chosen arbitrarily, we're calculating with mathematical ghosts, numbers that feel real but have no substance. Third, the illusion of advantage. Perhaps switching changes nothing fundamental about your situation. Perhaps the perceived advantage is just a mirage created by the way we frame the problem, a cognitive optical illusion that fools us into seeing progress where none exists. Each solution reveals something disturbing about the nature of rational thought. We don't just make logical errors, we make errors that feel logical, that satisfy every test our minds can devise, yet lead us into impossible places. The two envelopes. Paradox isn't really about envelopes or money. It's about the moments when our most trusted tool, logical reasoning, becomes unreliable, when the very process of thinking clearly leads us into darkness rather than light. And perhaps that's the most profound lesson. That reason itself, despite all its power and elegance, sometimes encounters problems it cannot solve without destroying itself in the process. The paradox doesn't offer us truth. It offers us humility. So the next time you face a decision that seems perfectly logical, perfectly clear, ask yourself, am I reasoning toward an answer, or am I reasoning in circles? Because somewhere, in the space between those two envelopes, lies a truth about the limits of human understanding that we're only beginning to glimpse. The envelopes are still there, waiting. The choice remains. But now you know, sometimes the most dangerous decision isn't which envelope to choose. It's believing that logic alone can guide you to the right choice. What does it mean to think clearly when clarity itself becomes a trap?